Hello detectives, and welcome to my video for March. This has been a really exciting month for me because I have just revealed the colour for book 7 in the Murder Most Unladylike series, which is coming in October. And that colour is, of course, lilac. You can now pre-order book 7 online or in bookstores, and if you're wondering what it's going to be called, I can't quite tell you yet, but I will be able to reveal that very soon as we have finished the final cover. It's looking great already. I'm so excited with how this book is shaping up. I've just been working on the second draft of it, so I know there's lots of excitement, lots of surprises, lots of twists and turns for the Detective Society in this new book. What I'm going to do now, though, is talk to you about some of the books that I have read and loved in the last month. It's been a really great month for books. It's hard to narrow them down to just 5, but of course I have to do that every month. So here are my top 5 books for March 2018. And the first book I've chosen is Sam Wu is Not Afraid of Ghosts by Katie and Kevin Tsang. This book is about Sam Wu, who is not afraid of ghosts or anything else. But when school bully Ralph Philip Zinkerman tells everyone that Sam is a scaredy cat, Sam needs to get back at him and needs to prove that he is really brave. So the first thing that he does is buy a pet snake, which of course I love, and the next thing he does is solve a very puzzling mystery with his 2 best friends. There is a scary rattling noise going on in his house, and Sam and his friends have to work out what it is. This is a brilliant book. It's so funny, it's so sweet, it's beautifully illustrated by Nathan Reed. Sam Wu is Not Afraid of Ghosts is a brilliant, funny beginning to what I'm sure is going to be an excellent middle grade adventure mystery series. These books are for slightly younger readers than the people who read my books, although I know if you like my books, you'll enjoy this a lot too. If you think that this is a book you would like to read, or if you can think of somebody who would really enjoy it, I've got good news for you. I'm giving away 1 copy, this copy that I'm holding in my hands. It's been signed by Katie, and all you need to do to win it is comment below saying that you would like to win Sam Wu is Not Afraid of Ghosts, and I will pick 1 winner at random at the beginning of April. The next book I've chosen is a book that has just come out this month, and it is a book that I think is so fantastic that I actually gave it a quote to put on its cover, and you can see it right here. And that book is The Children of Castle Rock by Natasha Farrant. And I completely adored this book. I read a lot of mystery stories, I read a lot of children's adventure stories, but I think this is one of the very best that I have read in the last few years. This is one that I am absolutely convinced that if you like my books, if you like the Murder Most Unladylike mysteries, you will adore The Children of Castle Rock. It is right up your street. The Children of Castle Rock is about a girl called Alice. Her mother has very sadly died and her father is a bit absent, a bit unfocused, so her aunt decides to send her to a school in Scotland called Stormy Loch. Now Stormy Loch is a boarding school, a bit like Deep Dean, but it's not just any boarding school, it's a boarding school where you can pretty much do whatever you want. It's a boarding school where kids can kind of get up to whatever they want and follow any of the interests that they may have. Alice, who's quite quiet, quite thoughtful, would prefer to be reading and writing stories, at first doesn't really feel like she's going to fit in at Stormy Loch. She meets a boy called Jesse, who she thinks might be her friend, until something really quite terrible happens and they realise they're bitter enemies. And for a while she kind of gets wrapped up in school until her father sends her a mysterious note asking her to meet him on an island in the wilds of Scotland. Alice doesn't know how she's going to get there until she hears about the school orienteering challenge, which sends kids off for 3 whole days on their own, trekking through the Scottish Highlands. Alice knows this is the perfect opportunity to get to her father because she knows when she does, he will remember how much he loves her, he will take her away from this school and she will be with him again, which is really all she wants. This book is so exciting. I could not put it down. It's a proper mystery story. You want to work out what is happening, what is going on, what the secret is. But it's also a story about best friends and adventure and kids saving the day, saving themselves, looking looking after themselves when sometimes the grown-ups are just not doing a very good job of it. It's for anyone 8+. I think that adults would enjoy it as well as children. It's beautifully written. It's so exciting. I really can't praise this highly enough. It's one of my favorite books that I have read this year. Next on my list this month is a book that is for slightly older readers than the children of Castle Rock. It is Big Bones by Lara Dockrill. Big Bones is all about a girl called Bluebell, or BB, who at the very beginning of the book is told that she needs to lose weight because she is obese. Now, the setup of this story is something that I've read a lot of times before. I've read a lot of stories about girls who are overweight at the beginning of the story. They're told they need to lose weight, and then they lose weight, and then they become so much happier, and they become so much more beautiful, and they get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and that is the happy ending, that they've lost weight. And I was really worried that that is what this book was going to be, because I don't want to read those narratives anymore. I think they're really unfortunate, because actually how heavy you are has nothing to do with how beautiful you are. It has nothing to do with how good and important you are. And you should be able to read books about people of all different sizes without them being told that they need to lose weight. But I was so pleased to read this book, because actually it turns out to be completely the opposite to all those other damaging, upsetting, dangerous stories. This book is all about BB not losing weight, not learning to stop eating, but learning to just really care about herself a lot more. At the beginning of the book, she loves food. All the way through the book, she loves food. At the end, she loves food. I love baking, I love cooking, and so I love seeing food represented in books. And this book is just a love letter to how great food is. What I love about this book is that it's not about giving anything up. It's not about BB learning to lose weight, which is a horrible thing that nobody should learn to do. People should not be on diets, and that is something that I really learned myself and I really believe in strongly. BB does not diet in this book, and I love that fact. I just think this is such a fantastic, such a positive narrative that really everyone should be reading this and reminding themselves about how important it is to love food, to love yourself, to take proper care of yourself. I would recommend this for anyone 12+, and in fact, I think it should be required reading for anyone over 12, because it's a really important narrative. It's a really important counterpoint to all those stupid diet fads that are always going around that you should not be listening to. You should be listening to your own body. You should be looking after yourself. You should be feeding yourself properly. And that is what this book reminds you to do. It's also really well written. Lara is a phenomenally talented writer, and I just enjoyed this book so much. BB is a great character, and I'd read about 6 more books about her. Next is another YA novel that is extremely different to Big Bones, but excellent in its own way, and that is The Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Now this is not the final cover if you've seen it, because there have been displays of it almost everywhere. This is a proof copy that I was given early, and I felt so lucky that I was able to read it before anyone else. It felt like I had a secret that I wanted to share with everyone else. Children of Blood and Bone is a young adult fantasy novel set in an imaginary kingdom called Orisha. Now, Orisha is a kingdom that is split between magical people, the Magi, and the non-magical people. The Magi, the diviners, used to rule Orisha until one day, a generation ago, the non-magical people in Orisha took over. They removed the Magi's magic and they basically made them their slaves. And that is what's happening when we start this book. The Children of Blood and Bone is narrated by 3 people, and the principal narrator is Zelly, a girl who has diviner blood, and you can tell because diviners have very dark skin and very pale white hair. She really wants to get her magic back, but she doesn't think that'll ever happen until she is sent on a mission that brings her crashing into the royal family, the Princess Amari and the Prince Inan. And Amari and Zelly team up to basically bring back magic to Orisha, but Inan is on their tail, chasing them, trying to stop them bringing magic back, because he is terrified of what magic will do to Orisha and wants to keep things as they are. He wants to keep his father, the king, in power, and he wants to make sure that the non-magical people are the ones who stay in control. That is how the story begins, and I won't tell you anything else because it's a very thick book. So much goes on, and there is so much excitement and danger and intrigue. I was on the edge of my seat with this one. I was whizzing through the pages. This book takes you on a journey through an amazing magical land that is really unforgettable, and it is not a story that I have really read before in young adult fiction or even really in a book. And a great comparison to it is a movie that you may well have seen, or you probably will have heard about it even if you haven't seen, and that is Black Panther, one of the best movies I have seen this year. I actually read this book and then I saw Black Panther the next week, and the two are quite similar in their excitement, in the great characters in them, and in the fact that they are both set in these magical lands that draw very heavily on African cultures and African countries. I think it is just so exciting that we now have books like The Children of Blood and Bone, that we have movies like Black Panther. I would love to read a lot more stories with perspectives like this. I would love to read a lot more stories set in African countries that have this kind of care and attention given to them. I love The Children of Blood and Bone. I cannot wait for the sequel. And I also think that while we're on the topic, you should definitely go see Black Panther if you haven't. It's a phenomenal film. This is a phenomenal book. They are perfect together, and I am very excited that they have both been released now. I would say that this book is recommended for anyone 14 plus, just because it is a bit thicker. There is quite a lot of violence in it, but anyone older than 14 will love it, and I would definitely recommend it to adults as well as teenagers because it is a brilliant read. And finally, I'm ending, as I always do, with a choice of classic books, books that I loved when I was younger. And most of my books are still in storage because I have just moved house, but I was sent this new collection of Peter Wimsey short stories. Of course, Peter Wimsey is Dorothy Sayers' most famous detective, and he is one of my favourite detectives. I know that I've talked before about a book called Gaudy Night, which is also by Dorothy Sayers and that stars Peter Wimsey. That was the inspiration for my book, Mistletoe and Murder, and so I have been really enjoying reading these stories. A lot of them I had read when I was younger, and I'm remembering them as I read them again. That is the nice thing about getting older. You start forgetting the books you read so you can reread them again. I actually think that short stories are a brilliant way to get into mystery authors who write for adults. Sometimes Dorothy Sayers' books can be quite long. They read more like adult novels in their pace than like crime novels, like Agatha Christie's crime novels, which are very short and snappy. But these stories are brilliant, I think, to introduce you to the character of Peter Wimsey and to introduce you to Dorothy Sayers' brilliant detective mind, because she really is one of the cleverest detective authors who wrote in the 20th century. And Peter Wimsey is such a great character. He's sometimes funny, he's sometimes a bit buffoonish and silly, and sometimes he's absolutely brilliant. He's a bit like Uncle Felix or like James Bond. And one of my favourite of the stories in this collection is The Learned Adventure of the Dragon's Head, in which Peter Wimsey actually has to be an uncle, a bit like Uncle Felix, and he has to work with his young nephew to solve a treasure hunt. It's a really great story. All of the stories in this book are brilliant, and I would say that this is perfect for anyone 12 plus. If you do pick this up and you enjoy these short stories, then go ahead and move on to her full-length novels. I would say Gaudy Night isn't a bad one to read after this, but also a book called Strong Poison by her, which I think is one of her cleverest mysteries. So those are my picks for March, and I hope you really enjoyed them. If you do want to win that copy of Sam Wu is Not Afraid of Ghosts, comment below, and do check back here in April for more news, more updates, more book recommendations, because I know that I have a lot of news I can't quite tell you about that I am just bursting to announce, and I will be able to do that in the next month or so. Look out for the title and cover of book 7 and for some other announcements that I know you'll be really, really pleased about. So have a wonderful month, and goodbye.